And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're at. This is Nick Sconia. I'm the Holistic Monitor. And today I'm joined by Lauren Kester. Lauren is a mindset coach and astrologer, and she's going to be doing some readings about our year to come in 2024 and some astrology forecasting. Uh, we're looking to get us an idea as to what we're looking at in our future as far as planetary alignments and transitions and whatnot. So, without any further introduction, here's Lauren. How are you
Hi,
doing, Lauren?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
All right.
This astrology is my favorite thing. Nothing lights me up more than talking about astrology. So I'm so excited to talk about the year ahead and
Awesome.
lots of good stuff coming down the line for us. I think 2024 is going to be an interesting year.
I'm getting that vibe just off of all the things going on in the world, and I call this show "Stars Align," and I feel like that's um, kind of a strange way to say things with astrology because they don't necessarily line, but they do align with planets, right? The planets will line up against our systems, and we'll get some kind of energy off of that we can experience in our everyday life in
Definitely.
different ways, depending maybe on our sign or just how we're clicked into that planet or that star system.
Yep.
Uh, Now, I'm having you on because as I have done astrology myself, I learned it to learn about myself. And in turn, I found out that I was able then to help other people with what I had learned from myself. But I've taken a back seat on it because I really uh, like to keep it as a reference point in my day. It's a
Yeah.
nice system. I'm very happy that I learned it. I didn't know that I was learning something like this, but it does help me throughout my everyday. It's like a background, maybe you call it a mindset type of thing where I just have some reference point when I'm working with people, when I hear what they're talking about, it kind of can coincide with something that I've experienced in astrology, and it helps me work with people as well. Now, for yourself, do you work it that way as well? Do you kind of see it kind of like the Tetris, where you see Tetris all out in the world if you played that game before, and you start to see the blocks falling? Everything then turns into astrology, and people turn into their signs and that sort of thing. Does that kind of how it works for you as well?
Definitely. I think that astrology is such a reflection point. It's a mirror for who we are and what we're here to step into, to embody. And you kind of alluded to astrology helping you to step into maybe who you always were, or maybe giving yourself permission to help others or to be who you really are. And I think that's what astrology really gives us as this beautiful gift is permission to be fully ourselves, because everyone has a unique chart.
Mm-hmm.
The birth chart is a snapshot of the sky at the exact moment you were born, and the planets are all in different places for most of us. And then we use that as an energetic blueprint for who your soul and came here to be to step into. And so all of the planets in your birth chart are staying the same, but you got to also remember that the planets are always moving. So all of the planetary movements that happen every day impact us all in different ways. And so you can look at your sun sign, which is what most of us know, but there's lots of other planets and placements that are very important, and everything will impact you differently depending on your chart, because there's things called aspects and just different angles, and it's so much fun. But it
Yeah.
really is just a way for you to really understand yourself, and that's how I use it in my coaching, is really uh, giving people permission to be who they are, because so much of who we end up becoming as we become adults is what society wants us to be. But this little blueprint of your chart is like your soul. It's your
Mm-hmm.
soul's language, your soul's map of coming home to yourself.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it gets into a lot of debates and philosophical underpinnings of whether we have this destiny, whether we have this line drawn in life where we're going to follow it no matter what our choices are, or whether we have free will. to overpower that. And I feel like we do. We have
Yeah.
both. We have a destiny, and we have the option of having a way to disconnect from that, a free will element that allows us to manifest outside of our sign.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. The
yeah.
astrology is just like the weather report, really. Like what
Yeah.
energies are here and what we do with those energies, I think, is up to us.
Hmm.
Sometimes certain planets will come in and really shake things up in a way that can be jarring or really life altering, but we always have that free will.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
It's great. Well,
that's how I see it.
yeah. I feel like the more unconscious we are in the moment, the more guided we are by these unseen forces,
Mm,
and the more conscious we become. Not necessarily do we step outside of that guiding force. We don't have to, but the more conscious we are, the more we see those guiding forces and acting in our life.
yeah,
I've seen people try really hard not to be their sign, and they just exhibit it more and more by doing that.
totally. And
Which is
it's
very
always
interesting.
people who say, "Oh, this astrology isn't real," and then it's like, "Well, you're really being your sign right
Yeah, aren't you
now."
stubborn? Yeah.
You can control the tides. Who are we to say that there isn't something here
Yeah.
that's affecting us? That's my view.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think that a lot of people that fall around a cusp may find it hard to understand their sign because they have such a blending of two signs, and that can be very difficult for them to kind of zone zoom in on like their personality type based on just one sign. They really have to kind of gauge and influence on that at all times. And a lot of people that fall on cusps are like, that doesn't work for me. Well, maybe part of it works for you, and there's another part of you that's pulling and tugging, and almost could be a very dramatic difference elementally. Well, let's get into it. Let's see what we got for 2024.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot here. I've basically prepared some collective themes and then kind of what we'll be looking forward to throughout the year. Overall, I am very interested in the what will happen in the election time
Mm-hmm.
next
Mm-hmm.
year in 2024 in November. That's going to be really interesting. And one of the big reasons for that, and probably the most significant thing that we're going to see in 2024, is that Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, death, dying to yourself, being reborn. It's the planet of power, collective power, and personal power. It is a very, very deep, transformative planet. Kind of the farther away the planets are from Earth, the more the transformation can be at a collective level.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the last about since 2008, 15 to 20 years, Pluto has been in Capricorn. And Pluto dipped into Aquarius in 2023 and then retrograded back into Capricorn. But Pluto is going to be moving back into Aquarius right in time for Aquarius season around January 20th. And then staying in Aquarius, it does retrograde back into Capricorn a bit. But then near the end of the year, it comes back and is in Aquarius for the next 20 years or so.
Mm, okay.
So this is all astrology language. What does this mean?
Yeah.
um, when Pluto was in Capricorn, we really, as a collective, were thinking about Capricorn like themes, our relationship to structure, to power, to discipline. Capricorn also rules depression, interestingly. But Capricorn is a very rigorous, kind of can be very, very industrious, but it also can be very, very rigid.
Mm-hmm.
Sign.
Yeah.
And so as we move into Aquarius, we're going to be seeing a lot of changes around themes of Aquarius. And Aquarius themes are things like thinking about the collective. The Aquarian, I always say, is looking at the world not from 100 feet, but they're looking at everything from 3,000 feet or 30,000 feet. They're looking at everyone, they're not
Mm,
just looking at one person. And so I think there's going to be a lot of collective minded changes that are going to be happening. Like really caring about not just one person, because in the US, we're I'm not in the US right now, but the US is a very like every man for himself type place. But I
Mm-hmm.
think we're going to be moving into a culture, hopefully, over the next 20 years. This is not going to happen overnight, right when Pluto moves, of really caring more about everyone. And I think that's going to be really beautiful. And
Mm.
also Aquarius rules things like technology. There's been already some crazy advancements in AI. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Aquarius rules like kind of like being unique, being unpredictable. The sign of Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is a planet of just like uniqueness and shaking things up and
Mm-hmm.
unpredictability.
Yeah.
And so when Pluto moves into Aquarius on January 20th, and throughout this year, really, because Pluto does move really slowly, as a collective, we're going to be closing out some really significant chapters of our relationship to our own power, and then stepping in sort of to a new phase of what our power can look like as an individual, as part of a collective. And so I wrote down some examples here in my notes. Like when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008, that's when Barack Obama came into power. It's a planet that creates big shifts. I've seen some other astrologers talking about predictions for what is going to come through, and I saw somebody share that they think that. Well, this is kind of random, but Jeffrey Epstein's
Mm.
list of customers is going to come out, and it's going to really shake up who's in power because it's going to be. I mean, we already. I don't want to really get into that, but like, it's going to be
Yeah.
a really interesting time. And I think on an individual level, we get to really think about like, who do I want to be in society? Because Aquarius is not so much thinking about just me, like I was in Capricorn when Pluto was in Capricorn. Pluto is really thinking about we. Aquarius is thinking about we.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's really beautiful and I think really necessary for everything that's really evolved over the last 4 years since 2020. And it coincides with the United States has been in its Pluto return
Mm.
since last year, which is we could spend a whole
Tricky.
hour on that.
Yeah.
But I think things within the United States are going to continue to evolve over the next few years. But Pluto moving into Aquarius, we're going to see shifts on a collective level that's beginning in January and continuing throughout the year. And by the end of the year, it goes firmly into Aquarius for the next 20-ish years,
Mm-hmm.
give or take some retrogrades. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what changes happen in terms of power dynamics, in terms of caring more about all people versus just some people, in technology as well. And it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Pluto, I mean, for me, it represents when it was discovered. It's when it enters a sign, I say that it's going to drop the bomb on that sign, you know,
Yeah.
and it's going to really, what it seemed to have done is unveiled the corruption,
Yep.
as a corrupting planet in a sense. It just shows you like, look, check it out. It's all in front of you now. And it was corporate. It was very business oriented, and it dropped the bomb on the corporations in a sense. When it's going to go into Aquarius, my thought and some experience of that, it seems to be that it's going to drop the bomb on the social empires,
Yeah.
the social businesses, as we're in the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius, but then also the upheaval of Aquarius, that combination of Uranus and Pluto,
Yeah.
causing havoc and potentially dramatic situations to play out. Okay, so Pluto's a pretty big one, but it's also super slow moving, and yeah, it's a very dramatic planet because it really
You
like
you may
draws
feel
it
it
out.
you may feel it on an individual level, really depending on your chart, but I
Yeah.
think collectively we're all gonna see it happening in the world around us. I if you have major Capricorn placements with
Hmm.
Pluto moving out of your those placements, you may feel like you're closing up a chapter for good.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. If you have Aquarian, when it changes signs, it's significant. So Pluto first moved into Aquarius in March of this year, and then it retrograded back into Capricorn. So if you remember what was going on in your life in March of 2023, it's kind of like a preview of what you can expect this year for yourself, because it's going to be significant. I'm a Scorpio rising and I have Pluto conjunct my ascendant. So for me, Pluto is like my most comfortable energy. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Pluto lady. And so I feel like I have a very different relationship to Pluto than a lot of people. A lot of people are afraid of it, but I'm like, I've transformed so much my whole life that if I'm not transforming, I'm not myself. So
Right.
I think it'll be really interesting for me
Yeah.
personally, but for everyone. I think
Yeah.
that's the first, yeah, that's the first and most significant thing of the year. I would say is this Pluto transit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And also, and to note on that, that you do this for people as well, right? In your practice.
Yes.
What is your website?
It's my name, so Lauren Kester. So it's www.laurenkester.com, LaurenKester. And actually, I have a special. If you use the code 2024, just the numbers, you can get 25% off a natal chart reading.
Awesome.
So I do one-on-one coaching and then I do just natal chart readings. So you can really see where all of these energies are hitting you,
Yeah.
um, and just kind of learn about yourself. It's the
Yeah.
most fun.
Yeah,
Um,
it absolutely is. What why I brought that up is because you said that where your planet is, a specific planet, in relation to your chart, and for people, this helps to guide them along. Like maybe I need to be in a different like career path, or
yeah,
maybe I need to live somewhere different. If you do transits, you know, there's a lot of insights that sometimes you feel like life is rubbing you wrong. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe you're trying to fight against the flow, the natural flow of yourself.
absolutely.
You're not finding your place, and that could be the reason is that you're working against your very nature in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For so long in my life, I fought against my nature.
yeah,
And I really accepted. I have a ton of water in my chart, which makes me very intuitive and very emotional, but I pushed down my emotions
mm-hmm,
for 35 years and then it gave me health issues. And so now I'm
right,
like, no, I'm going to be emotional. I'm going to be
mm-hmm,
witchy and love astrology because that's my authentic
yeah,
feeling.
right, yeah, yeah. It's good to know that stuff, you know.
Yeah, like a
uh,
permission slip to be
yeah,
you.
yeah, and everybody's very unique. And that's I think one of the benefits of learning astrology is that you see like, wow, this is like clicking into your personal matrix,
Yeah.
and you can locate yourself in it, and the
Personal.
knowledge is power.
I love that. Personal
Yeah.
matrix. Yeah, I'm going to use
Hmm.
that. Thank you. You
Hmm.
gave me some marketing material.
Oh yeah, locate yourself in the matrix to free
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah, all
Yeah.
that.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. And as far as we have the election coming up, that's big.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking, potentially groundbreaking new discoveries, technology. You mentioned AI before. AI is a kind of what we almost look at as a free radical. I see it as a very strong element of Aquarius.
Yeah, for
It is
sure.
this separated intelligence that is not that is grounded and yet not grounded. It's fixed and yet it's not. Um, it's a very interesting thing. I'm maybe devoting a show to it. We'll see because it's such a broad subject. It goes a lot of different directions. But does anything in the chart for the coming year or anything in the moving planets, are you seeing anything as far as new developments or, would this coincide with Pluto in a way?
I think because Aquarius rules technology and Pluto rules transformation and power, I think we're going to see over the next 20 years. I'm not sure this will all happen in
Yeah.
January when Pluto moves into Aquarius, but we will be seeing significant changes. And that could, whenever I can always predict the energies, but if whenever I try to pin down exactly what it will look like, it could
Yeah.
be so many different things, but it could
Right.
be anything from, more regulations in AI to crazy advancements in AI. But
Hmm.
I think the way we relate to technology is going to change because of that Aquarian energy really caring deeply about the collective. But I think there's going to be technological advances that we won't. I'm not a very techie person, but that we won't see coming, or that things people have known about, but it'll come into the light. Like, oh my gosh, this crazy thing. And as we go into, it's really interesting. The election season is super interesting, and as I was preparing for this, I was like, whoa, what?
Hmm.
Um, because right before we have the election, and then Pluto, which had been Pluto is actually retrograded back into Capricorn during the election.
Hmm.
But then it goes back into Aquarius on November 19th, which will be after the election. And that's the final time. Pluto will permanently, for the next 20-ish years, be in Aquarius.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
think we're going to be seeing some familiar themes since Pluto will be in Capricorn during that election season. But leading up to election season, we have in September and October an eclipse season.
Mm.
Um, and that's going to be really interesting. But between the end of between November of 2024 and July of 2025, um, almost every single major planet will be moving into a new zodiac sign. So
Wow.
some of the planets that are closer to Earth move more quickly. So
Yeah.
Venus, Mars, like those transitions, we feel them, but it's not like as significant. But between November 2024 and July 2025, Pluto will be moving into Aquarius. Neptune is going to be moving. Jupiter is going to be moving into Cancer. Saturn is going to be moving into Aries, which we will definitely feel.
Mm-hmm.
Uranus will be moving into Gemini. So this is more
Oh, wow.
2025 astrology. But I think we are going to see I would say, significant changes, just in the sense that, like, all of those are new energies. We don't know what those energies are going to bring, but I think it's unique to have so many signs kind of change, because some of these are very slow moving. Neptune,
Yeah.
Uranus move very slowly through the signs. So that's going to be interesting. Uh, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
when I realized that, I was like, whoa.
So
Okay.
that's between uh, late 2024 into
Yeah,
2025. So it really is a transition period then.
a transition
A lot
period.
of things leading towards something else,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll feel that. That makes a lot of sense because that is kind of what I'm already sensing. Is that there's a lot of things like in chess, things are getting set up, and it seems to
Yes,
be going
exactly.
somewhere. It
Exactly.
seems to be leading to something. What that is, of course, that will depend on that element of free will,
I was
the
looking at
wild cards. You know.
I was looking at the astrology of the 2020 election just out of curiosity, and I realized that Mercury was retrograde during that election. So remember how we didn't know the results until weeks
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
Mercury
Yeah.
rules communication. And so, of course, we really were very unclear in our communication about the results until
Mm-hmm.
Mercury moved out of retrograde.
Right. Right.
For
Yeah.
those people who are like, astrology isn't real, like
Watch it
that
play
was
out.
like, just watch, like, that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes it is. When there's not a lot of other counterintuitive elements at play, you can sometimes just see major conjunctions
Yes,
just play out right in front of your eyes if you're there to see it.
definitely,
Otherwise, you're likely an actor in it. Um,
definitely.
but when you can remove yourself from knowing that something's going to occur, and then just be very still and watch, a lot of times you can see these things play out right in front of you socially. I see retrograde Mercury all the time happening in front of me. I have to watch it closely. Unfortunately, it's one of those
Yeah.
things. This is very
Well,
much a part of my life, and it does a lot to me. But I have a natal Mercury retrograde, so for me,
oh, you've been
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like coming home. It feels great, but
Yeah.
everybody else around me is all fried.
I
You
have
know,
heard if Mercury is in retrograde when you're born, you don't get impacted as much by the like technology screw ups, the miscommunications, but it must be so interesting as an observer of it to watch us
yeah,
have our meltdowns.
yeah. That's it's basically what happens. Is it goes from and again, it's something I have to live with every day, whether it's retrograde or direct. So it's something that you kind of it's like, and I'm also left-handed, so it's kind of like a left-handed type of thing where you have to work with the environment around you in such a
Yeah.
way that everything seems to be made for somebody that's right-handed. So
Yeah.
you've got to learn to adapt into being able to use both of those. So I think that that's one of the powers of having something like a retrograde planet, such as Mercury, is that you have to flex that muscle a little bit so that you can work with the direct at the times when it's direct, and the retrograde. It just feels more like you're a lefty using a left-handed pair of scissors. Like, oh, this is the way it's meant to be.
That's so interesting.
But everybody else is melting down.
Yeah.
you know, the computer still blows up.
It's also
Usually it's on the other end though.
where Mercury is in your chart, like will impact what retrogrades you feel more of. So even if
Yeah,
like a Mercury retrograde for me in like one sign is not going to impact me as much as another. So this,
yeah.
knock on wood, but this current Mercury retrograde that we're in
Hmm.
at the time of recording this, like I have not felt it almost at all. But it is interesting because we'll be starting the year. January 1st is when Mercury moves out of retrograde. So we'll be in that retrograde shadow for a couple of weeks starting the year. But like as we're in this kind of Christmas season, the new year, and we're slowing down and reflecting, it's like right on time because Mercury wants us to slow down, to reflect, to
Hmm.
review. And so you get to start the new year and Mercury going direct. It's like in Capricorn season, it's like a time for
Right.
us to get shit done, to move forward, but it's a good time to just like lay low and
Hmm. It
and
is, and the
really,
problem is, I think that what happens is people are trying to get that locomotion to go forward, 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 and they're fighting against again that rhythm.
yeah,
And it's the holiday season, so this, you know, it's going to be retrograde over Christmas and New Year's Eve. So it really does say like just take it easy. And this is not a time when a lot of people take it easy. They're trying to do plans and parties and all this extra stuff. That this is not the time to be doing that.
yeah. I have a pretty significant cold, and I don't get sick very often. And
Mm,
it was like Mercury was like, just lay down,
yeah,
just. It's like
take a
okay,
breather. Yeah,
I'll lay down.
yeah,
But it is hard to because it's so much easier to work with the energies than against them. But sometimes it's really against our own nature.
right. Well,
Um,
yeah, you just don't know. And of course, if the listener contacts you and they want to find out, that's something that they can find out is where they can find their natural rhythms and what elements of their chart may be affecting their daily life. Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely.
Anything as far as we're in this zone of Pluto mindset, do we have anything going on with Saturn that looks big, or any other of those big planets like Jupiter doing anything that
We
conjunctions or
do.
any other aspects that might be
Um,
wild?
Saturn. So for those who don't know astrology, Saturn is a planet I think is it might be the most important planet in your chart because Saturn is what we're here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It is a life lesson. It is something we're here to step into. Your chart is full of lessons, but Saturn is that most significant thing you're here to really embody. For example, I have my Saturn in the second house in Sagittarius, so I'm here to learn how to be in my fullest freedom, in my self worth, because Sagittarius is all about freedom, exploration, travel, and the second house is all about value and what we value our personal finances. But for me, in my particular chart, it was really like you need to value yourself
Mm-hmm.
through everything else that's going on in my chart. So
Yeah,
Saturn has been in Pisces, and
Pisces.
during this time, Saturn moves, I think, every 2.5 years or so. through a sign. And Saturn in Pisces has been a time for us to learn about the themes of Pisces, because wherever
Mm,
Saturn is what we're collectively all learning about if we're paying attention. So Pisces
right.
is an opportunity for us to listen to our intuition, to feel our emotions, to go to our depths. The high road of Pisces is really being intuitive, listening to yourself, and really connecting on a deep level to you. But the low road of Pisces can be detachment, overly indulging in substances, or hermiting too much. But we've all been like kind of learning about these themes and how it will feel, uh, how Saturn will feel depends on your chart. But we're all learning how to relate to our more sensitive sides.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and so that has been going on. I'm looking at my notes here around the dates, and there are some Saturn is always having, little interactions with the other planets.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but I think that that is significant that we've been in this, and we're going to stay in this, I believe, through all of 2024.
Mm,
Um, and
Pisces.
he's in Pisces. Let me see.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to Google what live. When does Saturn um, into Aries? Oh yeah, so we're in it. We're in this for a while
Yeah.
until 2026. So
Oh,
that's.
okay.
But
So we're knee deep in it.
we're knee deep in it, but
Yeah.
it is moving slowly because it has some retrogrades. But
Oh,
it
okay.
is worth saying, if you have personal planets in Pisces, you might feel this significantly, because when Saturn is conjunct, opposite, squaring one of your personal planets, you will feel it because it is here to transform you. And
Yeah.
so if you have a Pisces sun, moon rising, or even a Mercury, Venus, like you have been through some stuff.
Hmm.
And just take a look at your chart. It impact you in different ways depending on your chart, but it's like, how do we really connect to our depths and
Yeah.
not avoid those things that are deep within us? And our sensitivities, our emotions, our intuition. If there's something that your intuition has been telling you and you've been ignoring it, Saturn and Pisces will make sure that you hopefully actually face it, because it will get very uncomfortable for you until you do.
Mm,
I always
yeah.
say Saturn is like the high school principal who like wants you to get into your first choice school. So he's like disciplining you and calling you to the office, but he loves you because
Yeah.
he wants what's best for you. But he knows that sometimes, um, the biggest growth happens through constriction. So Saturn is a planet that can really constrict you so that you can expand.
Mm,
And
right.
if
Right.
something's in your life that's not meant to be there, Saturn will make sure it goes. And so, the listeners may have heard of Saturn return before. So that's when Saturn comes back to where it was when you were born. So that's around between 27 and 30-ish years old in your life. A lot of us have significant shakeups in our lives around that time. So, if you have Saturn in Pisces, you're in your Saturn return season.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what's going on in Saturn. Jupiter is, much more fun to talk about because it's a
It
planet
is.
of expansion, of gifts, of kind of good luck. And so Jupiter is actually going to be moving into Gemini. It has been in Taurus. And so if you have Gemini placements, you're going to feel this, but we'll all feel the shift for Jupiter. But it's like Jupiter expands everything it touches. So Gemini is the sign of communication, of ideas, of like, when I think of a Gemini, I think of someone who can change their mind on a dime because they can see things in so many ways. So I think our way of thinking will be expanded. We might see things in a different way, but on an individual level, if you have a Gemini placement, I think you'll just feel really good
Yeah.
in this transit. Of course, depending on your chart.
Right.
My natal Jupiter is conjunct my moon, so all that does is since Jupiter expands everything, it just makes me have a lot of emotions. So
More
I
emotions, yeah.
but I had to just accept that about myself, which has been really freeing. But this is a significant shift because it's been in Taurus where we've been really expanding our relationship to Taurus themes, which
Hmm.
have been things like our stability, our Taurus is this earthy anchored sign, can be very stubborn, but it also can really be great at building things, of taking diligent steps, of creating something that lasts.
Yeah.
When I think about Taurus, I think about like how what makes me feel safe. And so we've created kind of this safety for ourselves with Jupiter in Taurus. And now we get to go out, and I feel like Jupiter in Gemini is much more playful and much more like, I'm going to try this. I want to try this.
Hmm.
Do that.
Yeah.
Which will be fun. And that moves. I'm looking for the date. I have this whole long list of notes with all of the dates. May 25th, Jupiter will move into Gemini. So,
Okay. Right
you
there
know,
on Gemini time period, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, right around there. So,
So Sun
that's
conjunction, I guess it sounds like Sun conjunction thereafter,
um, I will look.
or actually before that, right? Would be Sun conjunction as the Sun's rolling through that time period.
It
Um,
it will have a Cazimi at some point, which is yeah, which is basically a Sun conjunction.
mm,
Um, but interestingly, in August, Jupiter will square Saturn. Um, I don't. It really depends on you if you'll feel it or not. But it's an interesting dynamic between our expansion and our contraction.
mm,
So uh, it could be really interesting if you
yeah.
have um, yeah, because Jupiter and Gemini will square Saturn and Pisces, so it's like this contraction and expansion relationship, like push pull between
Mm.
my depths and my emotions and my intuition and all of the ideas that I have. Um,
So
it's kind of fun.
so Jupiter would be squaring Saturn. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not it, anytime Saturn is involved, it feels more significant, but that's happening in August. I think outside of Pluto, the other really significant collective theme that we'll all be feeling is that every year and a half or so, the nodes of the moon move. And in 2023, in July, the nodes of the moon moved into Aries and Libra after being in Taurus and Scorpio for a year and a half. And what does this mean? um, the nodes are another point of growth for us. Basically, there's the north node where you're going, and there's the south node what you're leaving behind. And so when I think about 2024, I think about Pluto and I think about the nodes being in Aries and Libra. And so if you have Aries or Libra placements, you may have already started to feel this as in because it's the shift happened in July, but um, the eclipse seasons this year will be very Libra Aries focused, and so eclipses happen a few times a year, and it's basically two or three eclipses that happen back to back, and they're tremendous seasons of change. And if, again, similar to Saturn, if something is not meant to be in your life, it will go. And if something is meant to come into your life, it will come in.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
in Libra and Aries, we have this opportunity to release the themes of Libra, which are the lower vibration themes.
Hmm.
Every single sign has kind of high and low roads to their
Yeah.
sign.
Right.
So Libra is a sign of beauty and caring for others and balance and justice, but they also can be a sign of losing yourself to the other.
Right.
I always think about Libra as somebody who not necessarily is friends with everyone, but like when they go to the party, they have an innate sense of like a party, any party, they have an innate sense of what the energies are in the room, and they can mold themselves to become the right energy to like give the party what it needs.
Hmm.
And so with the nodes being in Libra and Aries, collectively, this is another collective theme, we're being asked to kind of let go of those parts of us where we lose ourselves and step into a more Aries energy of like embodiment in personal power.
Mm-hmm.
And Libra can also be codependent. So I think we're collectively moving away from, if we're paying attention, again,
Right. Yeah.
moving away from themes of codependency, overgiving, self sacrifice to the point of burnout, and into a place where we're advocating for ourselves. We're having those more Aries qualities where we're independent or interdependent.
Mm.
And I'm an Aries sun, so this energy feels familiar for me. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do we use our voice and advocate for what we need instead of letting somebody walk all over us? And because we're also, with the story of Pluto also moving into Aquarius, it's like, how can I be my independent self while also thinking about everyone else in a way where I'm not losing myself to that? I'm thinking about the collective in a way that I'm being generous, but I'm also making sure to be grounded in myself first. So it's like almost like, how do I put on my mask first before, like in the airplane videos, like
Mm-hmm.
put on your
Yeah. What do I
the air,
do?
yeah, put on your air first before you put it on for somebody else.
Right.
And we're all being asked to really do this. And so if you have major placements in Aries or Libra, you this next year could be very, very transformative for you. Um, the nodes were just in Taurus and Scorpio for a year and a half, and I'm a Scorpio rising, so I was really deeply impacted by this shift. And just to give you an example of how significant the nodes of the moon can be
Mm.
for you, in right when the nodes of the moon changed into Scorpio and Taurus, for me, this is what happened. I went through a breakup. My dog was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
Uh, my dog passed away. I moved. Um, I moved again.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost my job.
Right. Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah, in a year and a half, all of that happened because
Oh.
the nodes really like they're here to help you embody and step into your fullness. So
Yeah.
if you have those Aries or Libra placements, especially Libra, if you know you're over giving, if you're burnt out, like you're not going to be able to continue forward as you have been. You just simply can't.
Right.
The stars won't let you.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things happened that were very, very difficult for me. But now I'm like, there is hope. Because like the end of my story, or not the end, because I'm living my life, but it's like I'm living in Paris right now. I am loving my life. I'm working for myself full time, doing what's my purpose. And so like
Yeah.
all of
Right.
that had to fall away.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. It's
if
like
it's
evolutionary, kind of
it's
like
an
evolutionary.
point, yeah. So we
Mm-hmm.
have the eclipses that are happening. We bounce a little bit all over, but the eclipses happen twice this year, and April is going to be a really interesting month because we have uh, one of our first eclipses at the end of March, and then we have a Mercury retrograde in April, and then we have another eclipse. And so, of 2024, the most interesting month I think is going to be April
April. Mm.
for Aries babies. Um, it's gonna things are going to be interesting uh, for Aries, but we have our
Yeah.
first eclipse in this axis this year. By axis, I mean the Libra Aries point because they're opposite each other. They're like direct opposite
Yeah.
on the wheel.
Yeah.
Um, so we have a lunar south node eclipse in Libra in March, and then Mercury goes in retrograde on April 1st, which I think
Mm. Oh.
is gonna be an interesting April Fool's Day this year
Yeah.
because there's, like, these Mercury is like a trickster. It
Yeah.
messes with
It's
our
perfect.
communication, and so I think there's gonna be some, like, April Fool's jokes gone really wrong that we'll hear about. Hopefully not, but, like, it always happens anyway, but I think this year it just might be even more because if Mercury is screwing up our communication, like, somebody like, watch the news around that time. Um, and then we have a
Yeah.
solar north node eclipse in Aries on April 8th. And so pretty much from mid-March to the end of April, we're gonna feel some shakeups, and then
Okay.
April 20th, Jupiter is conjunct Uranus, which
Hmm.
Jupiter is the planet of expansion, Uranus is the planet of unpredictability, and it rules lots of other things. But I think there just could
Wow.
be, it's going to be an interesting April,
And
but
what was the date on that?
April 20th, 420. So it's
420. Oh,
easy
that's fun.
to remember. Um,
Yeah.
but as you navigate, like the whole, the thing for me with astrology is that I believe you have free will, and it really is about like listening to your own intuition and letting the energies guide you. And you have your free will, but if you fight against the eclipses, like it can get really uncomfortable. So if
Yeah.
something during this, well, pretty much any time I would say this, but especially during eclipse season, if something leaves, let it leave.
Yeah.
Something
Right.
comes, let it come. This year during eclipse season, I had a very close friend just leave. And I was like, what is that? Like, this is so like out of nowhere, completely out of left field. But that's what the eclipses feel like. It's like this thing just left. Like, what?
Just happened. Yeah.
But you just got to kind of let it. And since these are in Aries and Libra, we're going to be really like letting go of things that make us feel small, make us feel like we've given up part of ourselves, and we're going to be stepping into this kind of like Aries energy because the North Node is in Aries of like, I am. The
Mm.
Aries is like, they're walking to a room and they're like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I'm strong, I'm bold, I'm as an Aries, I can say this, we can be impulsive and do things without thinking, but we also like are the trailblazers. We go first, we innovate. And so like how can we go first in
Yeah.
our own lives if we've been someone who's been codependent, overgiving, overly self-sacrificing? What do I need to do to make sure I'm taking care of me? So that's another thing. Like everyone will feel this, but especially if you are, again, Libra. I would say Libra rising
Mm.
is
Okay.
probably, that's my opinion. If you are Libra rising, you will be in it. But any Libra and Aries placements are going to feel this. And then the second set of eclipses happens kind of pre-election.
Mm.
Um, So we have one on September 17th, the full moon eclipse in Pisces, actually. And then October 2nd, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Libra. So, like, I don't know, during that election time, probably some crazy news will come out, et cetera. Like, I mean, it always does.
Yeah. The
Um,
October surprise, right?
right. It's like with the eclipse, we're going to find out. I mean, it's been a crazy, like, what is even crazy to us anymore after the last few years? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right. No, it's true.
Uh,
It's been a wild ride, and but it seems if this is a transition year, we're going to see a lot of things coming together that
yeah,
make sense, that
well
start to
said.
make uh, more action, maybe in the following year. But we're going to see a lot of pieces falling together this in this next coming year.
I think so. I think so. And overall, I would say a lot of astrologers, and myself included, are were kind of like, the astrology of 2020 through 2023 was very dynamic. It was a lot, and I think this year is gonna feel lighter.
Hmm. Yeah.
God willing.
Yeah. I mean, transitions are difficult. Like you said yourself, you had to go through a lot of loss and tragedy to get to a place where you weren't experiencing that.
Yeah,
And transitions can involve positive things, but they typically involve the shedding of previous lives, of things that were that are no more when you're coming out of it,
yeah,
just by its basics. So that transition for a lot of people can be very difficult, depending on, of course, their sign
yeah.
and even their type of sign. Certain signs just are very resistant to change in general.
That
Uh,
is true.
so everything shifting in a year is a lot. It's a lot on people in a
Well,
lot of different aspects.
I think I think we've shed so much um, in the last 3 years that any transitions, I totally agree, can be really hard. but we've shed so much already, and if you haven't already shed some stuff in the last 3 years, like, it's time.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably, like, are on the spiritual path and have been listening and have been, improving yourself, so, I would guess that you have been, like, letting go of what needs to be let go of, but,
Hmm.
um, I think this year it is a transition year, but I really think it's gonna feel better, as long as we're not resistant to what is.
Right. Right. And that's always the factor. It's the resistance, and there needs to be resistance to some of it. That gets to be where that unpredictability. You don't want things to just go completely awry in your life. There needs to be a maintaining of control
Yeah,
in the process of transition. Proper guidance of that transition happens with the will. So making sure that it goes the direction you want it to go, in a sense. But there's going to be elements that are just out of your control. That's just the way it is. And how you handle that, how you handle those elements, that will be a mark on the character,
yeah.
where you end up in the end of it. Now, we have the election. That's already begun, I guess. And we're going to have some kind of shakeup happening in March and April.
The first
And
eclipses are in March and April, the second are in September, October, and, uh, I think eclipses happen every year, but they always seem to surprise people, so I like to always talk about them
yeah,
because if we it's similar to Saturn, if we resist what the eclipses are asking of us, it can get very uncomfortable. So, like I said already, if something comes, let it. If something goes, let it. And the more you pay attention to these energies of like, "Oh my gosh, what? This happened? Okay." I had a friend this eclipse, like, on the day of the eclipse in October, she fell in love. Like, this guy just came into her life out of nowhere, and then it was like, "Oh, I'm in love. Okay, this was supposed to come here,"
mm-hmm.
you know? So it can be really good things that can come in during an eclipse cycle too. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's gonna be an interesting time. We wrap up the year heading into a Mars retrograde,
Mm,
in December on December 7th. And so Mars retrogrades are less frequent than Mercury. 'Cause most people know Mercury retrograde just from kind of like living in the world.
yeah.
Mars retrograde, I think is going to be interesting because Mars is our planet um, of work, of kind of like the more masculine themes of anger, of war,
Yeah.
um, and getting
Assertive.
that assertiveness. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be retrograde in Leo and then move into Cancer in the beginning of 2025. And then we start 2025. We're already getting a year ahead with a Mars retrograde. Um,
Mm,
I think it will be an interesting time because after, especially post election,
yeah.
I don't know how this could manifest, but Leo is a sign that, like, loves to be in the spotlight, and Mars is this sign that can be, it can be really diligent in getting things done, but it also can be, quick to anger. So it's like, I don't know how that's gonna look, but it's
Yeah.
always anytime we're in a retrograde, it's a good time to review,
Right.
to slow down, and, anything that's basically review,
Yeah.
uh, recalculate, rest. That starts with RE.
Yeah.
And Mars does rule our work. It's like a good time to reflect our relationship to the work that we do in the world.
Hmm.
Um, I find that Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. So I find that during Mars retrograde as an Aries, I really have to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, but that's me personally, and I'm very sensitive to these energies now that I know about them.
Right. Right.
um,
Yeah.
So that's an interesting end to the year, but I'm just really curious how the eclipse season in September, October is kind of going to usher into us in November when Pluto re enters Aquarius permanently for the next, not permanently, for the next 15 to 20 years. And
Yeah.
then like, heading into a retrograde. It's going to be interesting. Uh, I'm not too nervous about that. I'm mostly like, with as much optimism as possible looking to the future because I think this Pluto shift into Aquarius, although it might not like feel comfortable all the time. It's like since Pluto wants us to be thinking about the collective, I think there's no way for us to move forward the same way as we have been. That is a very broad statement. I'm not saying like we're going to dismantle the government or anything, but I think things will
Could happen.
could happen. It could
Yeah.
happen. I think that we'll be shifting into energies where people will start giving a shit about other people.
Mm.
That is at
Yeah.
least that is at least my hope. Like that is the
Right.
weather, that is the astrology. And I think like I've been living in Europe for a few months. It's like it's very different than living in the US because people
Yeah.
care much more about each other here.
Right.
Like it's like the simple things of like on the metro, like like if you ride the subway in New York, if an old lady comes on, you're lucky if somebody gives her a seat. But
Mm.
in the metro here, like if an older person comes on the train or a woman or a child, it's like, "Oh, here, give you,
Right.
take your
Right.
seat." Like, this is Aquarian energy. This is
Yeah.
caring about others. This is putting others as not even before ourselves, but as our equal, or really just showing that we care. And so I know I keep talking about Pluto, but it really is significant. And I'm excited to
Big year
see
for it.
how it will shake things up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big year for Pluto. Right.
Yeah. Big year for Pluto.
Yeah. Big year. It's a big year for a lot of things, and Pluto seems to always take the stage when it's like that, and so that makes complete sense. Yeah. Well, it was great having you on
Thank
and
you.
giving us a little forecast. Now, it's laurenkester.com.
Yep, LaurenKester.com. And there's a
Awesome.
button right on the homepage to book a natal chart reading. And again, the code is 2024 for a 25% discount.
Awesome.
And I would love to read for you and meet you. It's so fun to do your astrology. It creates such freedom when you
Yeah.
see, like, I am this way. Oh my gosh. I read for a business owner last week, and she's like, "I keep trying to do this thing, and it doesn't work." And then I like looked in her chart. I was like, "Well, it's not supposed to work like that. That's not how you are."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh my God, you just gave me permission to be me." And it was just like, well, it's a gift for me to get to do it because I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it.
It's awesome. Yeah. And it is one of the things, seeing the transformation for people, the awareness. That's one really great thing about dialing in with astrology, is that it's a means of finding out more about yourself from a perspective of a system that is time honored,
Yeah.
and it, it's a very available system too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are aware of it. It is in the subconscious pretty strong with people,
Yeah.
and you can really dial in and see the change, make the change, find out where you're not doing the right thing or in the right place or whatever. And I say that, very, very lightly, and make the change to go to that right place and do the right thing that just kind of lines up with, uh, more of your nature versus something that maybe you unconsciously moved towards that wasn't so beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your big three? Your sun,
Me,
moon, rising?
I'm a cusp, so a lot of experience with cusp. Leo Virgo,
Oh,
you
interesting.
know, and Sagittarius moon and
Oh, fun.
Capricorn rising. Good
So
stuff.
of course you have a Capricorn rising, like,
Yeah,
and you're so diligent about getting it out every week. That's so
yeah,
Capricorn
yeah.
rising.
I love this work. I don't necessarily love working or my regular job, but this as a job would be wonderful. It's fantastic, and I treat it like a job. So that's
Yeah.
goes right along with the theme for sure. Yeah,
I wonder if you'll be closing out any cycles when Pluto moves out of Capricorn.
yeah, I believe so. I believe so. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
But it seems like it's going to be a big transition year,
yeah.
and so 2025 may be a very big eye opener. Um, who knows? We'll
Grab your
see.
popcorn, I guess. We'll see how it all works
Yeah,
out.
I get the popcorn. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, and we'll check in with you later in the year as well to see how things have progressed.
Yeah, that would be so fun.
Awesome. Thank you again. Take
You.
care. Yep.